Hey everybody, JJ Barrows here with the Gist of It podcast. We have a fun episode for you today. It's actually a continuation from the previous episode. Brian Apprille, comedian, storyteller, motivational speaker, voice actor, man of many talents, shared his story with us last week about facial paralysis, about depression, overcoming that while also still struggling with it, right? Because life comes in seasons, and just because we recover from something doesn't mean when things get hard again, that struggle doesn't still present itself. And so Brian shared a lot about his journey, having struggled through it, having overcome it, how to still navigate it when things got tough. And let's be honest, things got tough this year. There's been a lot going on. I don't need to add to the chaos. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. I don't have answers, and I think there's other people in that same boat as me, people that really want to help in so many ways and don't know how to in others, and who think they're helping and then they realize they don't, and who want to show up again and, I don't know, are trying to figure out how that looks for this year. So much has been going on this year, and that's what I've loved about starting this podcast this year is people sharing their stories and their experiences over the course of their life. You know, some of them they have nothing to do with 2020 and the pandemic or the racial injustice or the wildfires, and others, it's very prevalent to their whole life story. Whether it's sickness or whether it's racial injustice, there's people who very much are struggling with what's going on, and there's just a mix. There's a mix of everybody being affected by what's going on worldwide and nationally, and at the same time, people also still have their personal stuff going on, their own struggles that have nothing to do with what's going on nationally. And sometimes it's hard to care about what's going on nationally. It doesn't mean you don't. I can see how individuals are really struggling with things unrelated, people who have lost family members and loved ones, some by natural causes and some really tragically. And so there's just this weird mix of everything. And then the wildfires, I know that's more of a West Coast thing. California, Oregon, really got hit. My friends in Portland, I know they even had to wear the N95 masks inside their homes because the air was so hazardous. It's like, what more could happen? You know, what a crazy year. And I had a friend say that they think the earth is like purging itself. Like maybe it's just getting saged, like once the fires hit. And so there's humor to be found in the hardness, not to make light of it, but just, man, if you don't at some point find a way to laugh, doesn't have to be about your situation or at somebody else, but just a way to find humor and laugh and something to remind yourself that you're okay. I see how it could be easy to think like there is nothing better to hope for. I don't know. So that's what I've enjoyed about this podcast. We've had people share about tough things, but we've also always ended up at some point laughing and being able to talk about tough stuff, probably because we laughed and we just enjoyed each other. And so if you haven't had a chance to check out previous episodes, please do. They're really amazing. All women. Prior to Brian was our first male guest. Thank you, Brian. But amazing women with amazing stories, from growing up in third world countries and poverty to growing up biracial and adopted, struggling with current racial injustices throughout their whole lives for some of them. Just really bringing awareness in the midst of a time where I think that's super important. And those very same women who talked about those really hard things were also able to share about what joy they find in life. And man, we laughed hard. So please be sure to check out some of the previous episodes. But if you are about to listen to this episode, do go and check out the one right before it. It's part 1 with Brian Apprille. And so basically where we left off last week was Brian was sharing about his facial paralysis, as well as a bunch of other medical conditions that took place, which led to a very severe state of depression, and wasn't really able to perform comedy anymore, partly because his face had been paralyzed and partly because the depression had just become so crippling. And he knew it was important at some point to get back up there, if that was what he wanted to do, to take that first step to get back on stage again, which is sometimes the hardest thing to do. And so where we wrapped up was he realized the importance of just those baby steps and of being kind to yourself in the midst of them. Because, man, we're our own worst critic, right? Like, the more you beat yourself up, the harder it is going to be to try and do something. And so he realized the importance of being kind to himself, and that actually people weren't being as mean as he thought they were, that it was actually himself that was hardest on himself and on his looks. And so that's where we pick up this week, just that notion of being kind to yourself, taking baby steps, getting back to what it is that you want to do and love to do after a really hard and dark season. So thanks for listening, and I'll check back with you after.
Especially the part where you said, be kind to yourself. I think it's such a simple concept, but it's also, why is that so hard to do? Like, and you had even said when you were kind of like deciding to get back into it, you were like, oh, I need to face the negativity. And so when you were streaming the video games online, you went to go see the comments, but really it was more curiosities. And what you realized was that the meanest comments about you were actually from yourself and not from other people.
That was really eye-opening. That was so bizarre. And I was just like, whoa, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, maybe I should be a little nicer. And that's kind of when that whole thing, again, being kind to yourself instead of being like, oh, I'm a loser because, I can't get a job or whatever. And just keeping in that same cycle of downward cycle, just kind of go, oh, I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I was so mean to myself, and I'm good with words. I'm good with insults. I'm a comedian. I got tons, and I would just bam, 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 and you start to take those on, the more you say it and you say it to yourself, you start to believe those things.
Yeah.
If you just keep repeating to yourself, I'm a monster, I'm a monster, I'm a monster, then eventually you're going to believe you're a monster.
Yep.
But if you just say, oh, I can get through this, I can get through this. And here's something that's kind of interesting. There's been studies that show physiologically, if you smile, your brain thinks that you're happy.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So I can't really smile. So my brain doesn't think I'm happy. So, and this is the truth with the synkinesis and the pulling, what I ended up doing, and I don't tell a lot of people this, but I stopped trying to be happy. I stopped trying to smile. I stopped trying to laugh. I didn't want to feel any emotions because it would trigger the pulling, and that would be like this slap of reality, of the slap of, you're a monster, you're broken, something's different, something's wrong. And you start to temper down all your emotions. So I don't get, I'm pretty laid back. And that's one of the reasons I don't get all like, hey, great. Because I just feel it and I go, oh, and it just reminds me and it reminds me and it reminds me. And so I started to really just tamper down the way I am emotionally. And that's not a good way to live, to have no emotion.
Right.
You should have emotion, good and bad, but I didn't even want the good because I was like, that's just going to get that little back of the head, like, oh, you're different. But yeah, so, your brain, if you can smile, turn that frown upside down.
Yeah.
But, again, people don't want to hear that, but there are ways to trick your brain. And I also used music. I found music that I liked that's kind of upbeat, and I got rid of all the, after a while, because it was all sad songs for the longest time. It was just all these sad, depressing songs. And then I started all right, I'm just going to put on happy songs. And for me, music speaks to me in such a way. And so I would listen to upbeat songs and fun songs, and that would kind of lift my mood a little bit. And it's another technique that I would use.
Yeah. So even when you didn't feel like the positive things, you would even like being kind to yourself, right? Like sometimes we wait until we feel like being kind in order to be kind, but it's that you just have to choose to say these things and choose to believe that they're important for you to hear and believe about yourself, regardless of how you feel in that moment.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And then another life lesson I've kind of taken out of it is I generally believe that most of the time, and this is, a little different for if you're in, depressed or whatever, but most of the time you can choose to have a good day. You choose the day you try to have. Like, certain things will always come up, events will always come up that'll force it one way or the other. But I think 90% of the time you wake up and you go, I'm going to have a good day today. And so what I started to do is when I would go somewhere, and this was before before everything happened too. But I still try to live this way. I kind of go, okay, I'm going to go somewhere. I'm going to let my inner child control the radio. So I'm going to put on fun music and I'm going to listen to whatever I want. I'm not going to listen to talk radio. I know there's going to be traffic. So there's going to be traffic. I'm not going to get that bothered. So I'm just going to have some good music when I go. Work is work. You know, if you're doing a day job or whatever, work is always going to be work, but you try to enjoy the connections and with the people that you have there. Try to make the best you can. And then on the way home, listen to some good music and just, again, do those little things to take care of yourself, as opposed to just being like, I'm stuck in traffic again. And just bringing that negative down. So I really believe that you can choose. So if this was my last day on earth and you get up to heaven and they go, oh, did you enjoy your last day? I want to be able to say, yeah, I did. So, you know, treat yourself well.
Yeah.
Have something nice for lunch, you know, do the little things like that. And that's another way to try to like get out of stuff too.
I like that. I also like the thought of that. Like upon your arrival to heaven, the first question is, well, did you have a nice day?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good exit actually.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be like, yeah, I had a good day the last day.
Yeah.
You know? Like
I don't want to go back, but it was a good exit.
Yeah.
I'm glad I made it here.
Yeah. I was worried for a minute.
Yeah. Another thing you said that I found really interesting, and it's just a really good point in general in life, is you said you were so worried about, you know, going back out in public and how you were seen and how people saw you. And you said at a certain point you realized we're all wrapped up in our own heads, that nobody even really noticed you, and not in like a nobody saw me type of way, but like we're all so caught up in what other people think of us that not as many people are looking at us or thinking about us as much as we are. Kind of like what you said, your meanest comments were from yourself. All of your thoughts or views, even in going back out into the public again, is like, it's weird because you have to believe that you matter and you're important and you have a place on this earth. But at the same time, you have to walk about this earth knowing you're not that important and everyone else has issues.
And you don't matter. Yeah, exactly. It's so funny. It's like, I'm important and I matter, but you walk outside, you're like, I'm not important at all. I don't matter.
I don't matter.
Yeah. Go stand at the, you know, the edge of a beach and look out over the ocean and then just go, yeah, I feel kind of small right now. You know, like, I don't matter at all.
Yeah.
You know, but not in a bad way.
Yeah, exactly. In a way that is just like, I don't know, just it's a bizarre mix.
But it is nice though to know that no one really cares. No one cares.
Yeah.
No one cares. Doesn't matter. You're wearing a Who Farted t-shirt, whatever. No one cares. Like, it doesn't, everyone's looking at their phone or they're talking to their, you know, whoever they're with, when nobody cares.
Right.
I mean, unless you give them a reason to care.
Yeah.
Like you go up and push somebody or something, like then people will notice you. But for the most part, people are just going about their day. They're in their own head sitting there going, oh, I got to do this and I got to get this done. And they're probably beating themselves up the way you are.
Yep.
You know, oh, I can't believe my hair looks like this. This is terrible. You know, or, oh, I'm having this issue, or I feel insecure about my looks, or I feel insecure about my finances or whatever. And they're all in their own head too. And so, I mean, just try it sometime when you go, whenever we're allowed to go out again. Just look around and see if you can remember what people, you know, all the people you come across, and you can't. I mean, unless you're really trying to.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think about that when I'm in the water, or when I'm surfing. And it is like, whether you mess up or whether, I don't know, someone else does, it's easy to feel like, oh, who saw, or what do they think? Or I think that anything that's performance based, you know, but like whether it's sports or whether it's, I don't know, activity, I don't remember anybody like, I'm sure throughout the course of my life, I've seen people eat it in the water or fall on the street or whatever, but like I couldn't tell you who it was.
Right.
Or even what they looked like.
Unless it was so spectacular.
Yeah.
Like such an epic fail of epic proportions.
Which then probably made them famous. So it's like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then that's interesting because you sort of realize that you just kind of meshed back into society, right? Because everyone's all occupied. But then it was another hurdle to get on stage, because stage is a completely different beast in that, and I've never thought of it that way until you described it that way, but especially if you have any kind of insecurity you're taking on stage with you, which we all do, some are visible, some aren't. But if you have a visible insecurity you're taking on stage with you, it's a dark room and the spotlight is on you, on your face, and your face in your particular story was the insecurity that you didn't want people to see.
Right. To go from what we were just talking about, that nobody cares and no one notices, it is the opposite. They're all there and they're all focused at you. And it's so it's so true though. It's so, any insecurity that you have, it will bring it out.
Yeah.
And so that was just really, I was so frightened. I was so scared that show, just getting back on. I mean, I get nerves or whatever for shows, but this was just like,
Yeah.
I have no idea. And it took my, that voice inside you. They're all going to say, they're all going to laugh at you,
Right.
and they can
Yeah.
all see. And, that negative voice. Oh, you look like a monster, and they're
Right.
going to say this, and they're all going to be staring at your eye, and they're all going to be,
Yeah. You talked about the troll, and you talked about kind of the jokes that you would make.
Yep.
Which also, that was really funny when you said something about you couldn't go to ComicCon because you felt like a troll.
Oh,
So
absolutely. So we went to a panel, and we're in the front, and they're doing a Family Guy panel. And then I'm just trying to like not be seen. And so there's a camera crew coming around, and they're looking for people who can try to do the impression of Cleveland, who's from Family Guy. Oh, hey, Al, whatever, right? And they're like, "Could anyone do this?" And then my friend goes, "He can." And he points to me, and I was just like, no. And so all of a sudden, this cameraman just goes right into my face. And I was just like, like,
worst nightmare.
yeah. And so I do it, and I sign this waiver, and I was just like, okay, that was really odd. And then we see the Simpsons thing. And he's like, you have to do this. You have to, because you do killer, voices, right? And you were talking about failing epically, where people remember you. So they have the Simpsons audition, and it's the 20th anniversary episode. And they're like, do people say you look like a Simpson, or you sound like Homer when you say dough? And I'm always like doing Homer Simpson. And so I was like, all right, I'll do it. They're like, you have to do it. You have to do it. And I'm like, all right, this could be my one, because as a comedian, you're like, this could be my one break. This could be my one opportunity.
Right.
Someone's going to see me, and I'm going to be a star tomorrow, right? I'm like, this is it. This is my opportunity. But why couldn't this have been like a month ago? Why does it have to be when my face is just, like I'm in full troll mode at that point, like my still like eyes not closing, my face is drooping. And I was just like, why now? But I go and do it anyway. And so I sign up, and you go into this room, and there's all these cameras, and they have these cameras all over the place, and they have directors, and they're sitting behind there. And I'm like, hi, I'm Homer Simpson. Welcome to the 20th Simpsons anniversary on ice in 3D. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. You totally have to come back. You're in the finals to be on the show. I'm like, okay. And so I come back later, and they have every producer for the past 20 years, every director for the past 20 years. They have Morgan Spurlock, the filmmaker, on the show. They're all in the room. And then the guy out there is getting like everybody hyped. He's like, okay, all right, guys, you want to go in with a lot of energy, which when I get really nervous for filming, my brain melts down. It just absolutely melts down. And they're like, go with a lot of energy. Because I guess the first couple people were kind of like, Comic-Con people. And like one person just showed up wearing a red dress and was supposed to be Lisa. I was like, come on, you got to do a little bit better than that.
Yeah.
But so guy gets me all wound up, and they're like, ready? Go in there. And I go in. You ever see a dog that's super excited to see you, and you go to like pet them, but they're like their butts just waggling, all out of the way, and they like can't stop? That was me in my audition.
Gosh. Oh my gosh.
Meanwhile, my face is drooping, my eye is open, doesn't blink, and I was like, hey guys, all right. And so this whole time I'm like trying to do the voices, and I come in and I hit them with the voice. They're like, that's great. You do any other voices? Now I've been doing Simpsons voices in my act for years, and I have this whole routine of all these like 10 different voices. And they go, oh, that's a great Homer. Do you do any other voices? And I couldn't remember. My mind went blank, and I just went, yes. And it just hung there. And they're like, okay, do you have any interesting stories? And then I was like, my brain just melted down more, and I was like, and I do the troll voice. I'm like, once in high school, I drew a picture of Bart. like the worst answers you could possibly do for any sort of like audition. One, my face is all messed up. I'm wearing this awful Hawaiian shirt. And then I just go in there and my brain melts down and they're all like, thank you.
Oh my gosh.
And then I just left and I was like, I just ruined everything.
Oh my gosh.
And then I
That
was
is so funny.
it was so bad. And I was, please don't show me on the show. Please don't show me on the show. And they didn't, thankfully.
But you were a finalist to be a voice on The Simpsons.
Yes, that was later after Harry Shearer left. But this was before that.
Oh, I didn't realize this was not the same thing.
And so what happened was Harry Shearer was going to retire. And so I reached out to Morgan Spurlock and I was like, hey, I was the guy at your 20th anniversary doc with the facial paralysis. And here's a video. And he took that and he like forwarded it to the producers. And, you know, some of that stuff kind of happened. But it was, yeah, talk about being so spectacular they remember you. That was so embarrassing, though. My brain melted down and I so nervous and just like, it was so awful.
But that's so, I feel like, yeah, it's prime example of like how something can be so awful. And in the moment, you're just like, this is the worst thing ever. And then one day you can laugh about how awful it was.
Absolutely.
Like you'll survive it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was so bad.
That is so crazy. So was this before then you actually started performing again, like doing comedy?
Yes, that was literally like a month after. It was like the week I got the IV out from home.
Wow.
And I hadn't been out yet. And that was like one of the first things I did to go outside, which was just what a way to start, you know?
That is so crazy. And so then what was like the trigger pull that you were like, I'm getting on stage again? Because you were kind of joking with your family, your friends. So it just kind of little by little, it would just kind of.
Yeah, like, it was just a little bit. And then I would watch comedy and I'm like, they're not funny. You know, I'm funnier than that. You know, like, or just that call of just like, I mean, you know, just in the back of your brain, like, I got to do this. I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to do this. And that was my goal, was I have to do it. I have to get back on stage at least once, because otherwise my career's over and I didn't want it to be over. And it was just little by little. And it was taking those steps that took over the, you know, the few years of, you know, going online and being like, okay, I'm in front of people. That's okay. They see me up close. They're not saying anything. I'm seeing people out in public now. They're not saying anything. Okay, how can I do it? Can I get on stage and just get in front of these strangers? And it was like, well, and I had a friend of mine who was like, it's just an open mic. It's no big deal. And I was like, yeah, it's just an open mic. It's no big deal. It's this, you know, little jiu-jitsu place that they're converting for this terrible comedy show. And I was like, all right, I'll just go do it. And then I don't know anybody. And so, you know, whatever, if it goes horrible, I'll at least have done it and I'll know, and I can, you know, mark it off it off the list. So it was just like, I just have to try, because it was just, especially comedy just gets into you and it just calls you more and more and more. And I have to get back on it. I have to do it. And, you know, they're always like, oh, you gotta get back on the horse.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really good point, the way that you said it. Like, even thinking about the open mic, like the open mic in and of itself, pressure's off. It doesn't matter. Like, it's just an open mic in this little place. At the same time, you have to have a first show back.
Right.
And having a first show back matters. Doesn't matter how it goes. Nope. It just matters that you get on that stage, wherever that stage is. And sometimes, because people think, oh, a little open mic, it doesn't matter anyways, that's another good excuse or a good reason to not do it, because it's just like, oh, it doesn't matter. But you have to take that first step.
Yeah.
And that step in and of itself, sure, might not matter by itself, but it's that first step, regardless of where it is the biggest one to get you to keep going, that gets you on the stage you want to be on.
Yes. Eventually. And it was, and for people who, I've heard some people who do this when they first try comedy, or they try something else, or they want to do something in public, go somewhere where people don't know you. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, oh, what if someone sees, then go somewhere where people don't know you. Yeah. Change your name, go up as Hank Williams, whatever. Whatever you need to do, and take that pressure off, You
Yeah.
know, allow yourself that permission to fail or to do it, but just to do it. Just give yourself
Yeah.
that permission to do it. Give yourself a fake name. Who
I like
cares?
that. I like the fake name thing.
Yeah, like no one's gonna know.
I might have to do that after quarantine or after this whole season of life because I haven't been on stage in God knows how long. And so now I'm like, I don't know if I want to.
Yeah. So you just kind of go, all right, I'll just go with the, you know. And so I did the open mic because it didn't matter.
Right.
You know, like if I was trying to get in on a weekend or something, like I just thought I could just magically get back in on a weekend on a show,
Right.
then that would have been something. But open micer was going to be in front of comics. It was going to be in front of, you know, small crowd. Again, it didn't really matter. So that took the pressure off, but from that aspect, but it was still terrifying.
Right. So, like, one of the things I love about your comedy, obviously, because I'm a storyteller comic, and so I love stories, and I love when people talk about their life, and you include so much of it in your comedy, and I love that you do that. I love that you've chosen to take pain and something hard, and you've turned it into jokes and stuff that people can relate to and laugh at, even if they can't relate to that specific sickness. They can certainly relate to pain and struggle. But you talk about viral meningitis, which was a very real thing that you experienced, but you have such a funny bit about it that I was wondering if you could share a little bit more about, to explain to people listening why it is also so funny that you specifically got viral meningitis.
It really is. In fact, when the doctor sat me down and said, "You have viral meningitis," I laughed in her face. My wife and I laughed because I have a joke about I swear I laughed like a Batman villain. It was hysterical. It was so funny. So I have a joke about Pictionary, and I've had this joke for 10 years prior. And basically the long story short is I always get stuck with like the worst possible things to draw. Everyone gets the easy things like door or window. And I get up there and I get words like viral meningitis, right? And that's kind of the punchline. And it's way funnier when you see me do it on stage than it is there. I'm amazing. Check me out. And what happened was that joke in particular, originally it wasn't viral meningitis, wasn't the punchline. It was, I forget what it was, but it was like bubonic plague. And I was like, no, that's not realistic enough. I need something that's realistic. That's too far fetched to be the punchline. And so I was like, okay, but I didn't want it to be so I wanted it to be something real, and I wanted it to be something rare, because I didn't want it to be something that someone might come in to the club and I remind them they have, like, not that I would ever use cancer as an example, but, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
Just something that's really hard to draw. So I spent months, like 3 to 6 months working on this punchline to come up with viral meningitis. And I spent hours and hours and hours just going, okay, it's going to be this, it's going to be this. And then I had viral meningitis, and then I just said it for like 10 years and just like, oh, viral meningitis, viral meningitis. No one ever gets viral meningitis. I don't even know what that is. And I looked it up and I was like, you can't really draw that. So that's perfect, And so then I just go through all these shows, and then they're like, you have viral meningitis. And again, I laughed right in her face like a Batman villain.
So you told this joke for 10 years before you had viral meningitis, and you specifically picked viral meningitis to be part of the joke because you were like, nobody ever gets it, so it's not offensive.
Exactly. It's really rare. It's not going to offend anybody. And then I get it. So as I say, now that I know my jokes come true, I'm going to do material about winning the lottery.
Yeah.
But have I won the lottery yet? No. But I got viral meningitis.
Oh, that's so good. So this is why I love people sharing their stories, because I just think there's so much we can learn from each other, and there's so much we can relate to with each other. It's like a mix, right? So I have like two questions. One's a 2-part question, but so technically 3 questions.
3 questions.
Yeah. So the first would be, in sharing your story, what would be like your takeaway message? What would be your why? What would you want people to feel or learn or know from having heard you share this story specifically?
That's a good question, JJ.
I try.
I would say the biggest thing would be to one, I think if you can laugh at yourself, you take away the power it has over you, and chase your dreams, because we're only on this planet for a certain amount of time, and we don't know how long that is. And if you're going to be on it, you might as well be doing something you like, chasing what works for you. Gosh, there's so many messages, so many takeaway messages. Be kind to yourself, allow yourself to do that. Give yourself permission to be okay. Give yourself permission to be kind to yourself, and just don't let something stop you. And just because, all right, I think this is it. Just because you're at a certain place now, it doesn't mean that you're going to be there forever. And it's about playing the best hand of cards you can with what's been dealt to you. So you might have a pair of twos in your hand. You play those pair of twos, because sometimes a pair of twos will win. Yeah. So just whatever you've been dealt, it's okay. Take it, embrace it, and run with it.
Yeah. Do something with it.
Yeah.
And I like how you said at the very end of your story, you said through it all, you found your purpose. Because you were doing comedy before, but it's different when you find a purpose, and your purpose still included comedy, but it was with the intention to help people and to bring healing through humor, through laughter.
Yeah, it's so important to me. It's so much better, like I said, than telling jokes to drunk people. And it does, when you can switch and change from what can the audience give me and what can I get out of comedy, and you flip it to what can I give to people, it changes that whole dynamic of beating yourself up for shows because this joke didn't hit or that joke didn't hit, and to connect. And one of the things I love is people come up and they go, I love your act because you're real. You're like the realest person I've seen on stage. And I love that compliment. And it's just about connecting with people and just saying, yeah, like there are people, I just remember being so down and so low and so alone, and nobody there in my mind to help me. And if I can just reach out and just kind of connect with somebody and go, I know what you're going through, or I may not know what you're going through, but I know you're going through some hard times, and it can get better, and it does get better, and you can get through this. Just hang in there and just laugh and just hang in there and fight. And to have that connection with somebody, and that's so powerful to me. That's what I really love to do. I get to raise awareness for myself and people who have facial paralysis, but I also get to hopefully help inspire people to chase their dreams, go for what they want to do, and also, make you just kind of go, you know what? Maybe this issue isn't that big of a deal, and maybe I can laugh at it.
Yeah, that's good.
So important.
So you said you actually used a word. So my next question, which is my 2-part question, which is my next 2 questions. So the first one, well, let me explain it first. So there's 2 things I think, obviously there's more than 2 things that people need, but there's 2 things I think would be beneficial to humanity in this season of life, for sure, but just throughout life as we go about functioning in general and with other humans. And the first one is awareness, and the second one is humor. Kind of like what you said, we're so caught up in our own worlds and our own things that we're not concerned with the other people around us, which on the one hand can be good when you realize no one's really looking at me, I can go about my business. But on the other hand, what does it look like to be intentionally aware of others and what's going on? That's why I'm sharing people's stories. So with the awareness piece, what is it for you that you think people should be more aware of or need to be aware about? And what tool or resource would you recommend? I mean, it could be issues related to mental health. It could be a happy thing, a hard thing, a sad thing. But what is something that you think people need to be more aware of, pay more attention to? And what resource would you recommend to do that? And then, okay, I'll leave it. That's part one.
Part one. For awareness, I think being aware, as we talked about, that you don't matter and it's okay. Like, get over yourself. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. Everything that, we feel is so important in our lives, whether it's status or whatever. It's like none of that really matters. What matters is your friends, your family, your loved ones, and how you just manage your way through this world. And I think that's really important, that you kind of just go, yeah, I'm insignificant, but it's in a good way. And will this matter in a year? Will this matter in 10 years? Will this matter in 100 years? Probably not. So don't beat yourself up over it. As far as a resource or whatever to do that for, I don't know. I would say just really tuning in to who you are.
I like how you said go stand before the ocean and
Oh,
realize how small you are.
Seriously, do it. It's you just go and then just look up into the sky and you're like, oh yeah, I'm nothing. I am nothing. My problem about this, my coworker eating my lunch, is not a big deal. Or, I didn't get that promotion, not the biggest deal. It's not going to matter in a year. It's not going to matter in 10 years. So I think maybe just some self-reflection, and it's probably good. I don't meditate because I can't focus that long on that quiet.
You don't have to do it. You can recommend it.
Yeah, meditate is good. But I just think finding something that's important to you, and just kind of embracing it.
Yeah, I like how you said doing something that earlier you said doing something that makes you feel alive.
Yeah.
Like no matter how little. It's like it's a mix. It's realize that we're not as important as we think we are, and at the same time it's important that we do things that make us feel alive because we are important. It's just this weird mix.
Here's a good piece of advice. Shut off the news. Shut off the news. You'll feel better. Stop listening to talk radio, whether it's sports or politics or whatever. That'll make you feel better. Listen to the things that you like. Like I said, let your inner child be heard, because that's generally when we're all pretty happy. We all kind of lose that sense of joy and wonder that we have as kids. And, some people have troubled childhoods or whatever, but just find that, just allow yourself to play and nurture yourself the way you want someone that you would want to be nurtured. And just do that for yourself. Just really focus on you. And
that's good. I like it. So that's
part A, subsection 6.
Part A. So the second question is, the second thing that I think people need is humor, right? And so along with becoming aware of things, whether they're hard things or tough things, or, kind of like you said, if you are doing self-reflection and soul searching, sometimes you can find stuff that you're like,
yeah.
And even though it's tough, it's good to navigate through to get to where you need to get. But that said, just doing the tough work all the time and just constantly having to convince yourself of XYZ can be grueling. And so I think one of the ways that we can energize ourselves or be encouraged to keep trying to show up or to become aware or whatever is through humor, is having breaks to just take a breather from the seriousness of life, or like you said, the news or politics or whatever, and just laugh, laugh for the sake of laughter. I love how you said smiling tricks your brain into thinking that you're happy, and endorphins coursing through your body. Yeah, I think is what more of us need, especially right now. And so for you, where do you go to find humor? And what do you recommend? What resource, what tool would you recommend for other people when they need a laugh break or they need to go find something? It could be a movie, or it could be a special. It could be.
I watch JJ Barrow's comedy special on Dry Bar Comedy. drybarcomedy.com/JJ. JJB. There are comedians that make me laugh, but there are other things that make me laugh. Like, I know this about myself. I like stupid laughter. So slapstick, like the movie Airplane, makes me laugh. There's some goofy guy stuff that I like from the movie Jackass. There's a couple of scenes in there that I know just make me laugh. And so I just watch them and I can't help but laugh. There's certain things that I know will always make me laugh. Like if there's a scene where a guy screams like a girl, instant laughter. Totally there. Or if people are talking over each other, instant laughter. So like those sort of things I know that I like. So I go to those for me personally when I need a laugh. Anything with like a juxtaposition. Like there was a video, and this isn't a political thing, but it was Trump doing the address at the cadets for at West Point, and someone took the theme from Space Odyssey, the dun dun dun,
Oh yeah.
dun, and it was this really butchered like 5th grade band version of it, and just the differences of him, Trump not paying attention to it because it's not there, and then the butchering of the music. I was crying hysterically. So it's finding those sort of things. Again, I like goofy stuff, but whether it's finding cat video, you know what I mean? Like in watching cat videos and cats going, oh, I'm going to make this jump. And then they totally, wipe out, and you just like, oh, you silly cat, it just laughter anywhere. And it depends on my mood. If I'm in kind of more of an angrier mood, give me some Bill Burr, and,
Angsty.
And let's go. Let's do this.
That's a good point. There's different kinds of laughter and humor, and yeah, there's this sarcastic
which
tone.
I love.
There's like that angry laughter, and then there's just like that like lighthearted, feel good. Yeah, that's good. That's so good. Well, thank you so much for taking time today to share your story and share the hard parts as well as the good parts, and just give us some insight. And I really appreciate you and your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so happy to do this. And everybody out there, be well, take care of yourself, be nice to yourself.
Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. Don't forget, Brian also has his own podcast going on. He's got 2 of them. He has Unique Smiles, one that's dedicated specifically to facial paralysis and talks with a lot of people who've gone through similar things. And also Uncommon Comedy podcast. Originally started as Uncommon Comedy Tour, but the tour was really getting started when Corona hit. So the tour ended up turning into more of a podcast where Brian is still able to interview other comedians and talk about the craft, and it's really entertaining. So you should definitely check those 2 podcasts out. You can find him on social media as @ComedyBrian, and I'll include the link in the show notes. If you remember me last week sharing about how if you want to help contribute to the surgery that helps fix the pain in his face that he has as a result of all the muscles and stuff moving from the facial paralysis. So be sure to check that out. You can find me here at The Gist of It. You can find me on Instagram @JJBarrows. Also YouTube. You can watch this episode on YouTube, or you can find my personal channel. Tune into some previous episodes of the Stay and Saturday show, because I've got some things in the works for the fall. Are we technically in the fall? It's almost October. That's crazy. Anyways, and find me at JJ Barrows Art. I've been working on some new pieces. Got some pet portraits going on here. I got some abstract fun going on as well. It's a good mix of both, paying attention to detail and then also just being like, I'm free. That's how I like to paint. So yeah, thanks again so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week. I'm going to get more timely about these episodes, but 2020, there's no rules. My Christmas tree is going up next week. See you next time.